Jonathan here, and welcome to Learn to Playthrough, and welcome to my workstation. Today we're going to be assembling the alternate genders of the 4 heroes from the first Shadows of Brimstone's core box, City of the Ancients. Now during this assembling process, think of it more as assembling tips and tricks than actually assembling. For the assembling, this is geared towards someone who has snipped off, or at least used some kind of glue at least once. So I'll be assembling any miniatures off screen and then returning to discuss the step-by-step of the assembling I just did. This way, you'll know what you're about to get into. But if you really need to see someone assemble these alternate genders of the 4 heroes from the Shadows of Brimstone's core box, City of the Ancients, at the moment I am sorry to say that I could not find any videos of anyone assembling these alternate genders. And as for the tips and tricks, these are geared towards all levels of assemblers, as you can never stop learning. So with that, just go ahead and sit back, relax, and enjoy. Now before we begin the assembling process, let's talk toolbox. So as you can see here by my toolbox on my workstation, wait a second, what toolbox? I don't see a big metal box with a bunch of drawers that you put tools in. Actually, the term of toolbox refers to all of the items that you have that you've built up to go ahead and use for your process that you're going to do, whether it be assembling miniatures or doing some painting. So for my toolbox, I got some cutting devices here, got a magnifier, I've got a file, some glue, and some sandpaper. Now I have what's called a basic set that I use for all my assemblies, and it includes some flush cutters. Then I've got an X-Acto knife, some fine files, and sandpaper, and those 3 are used in conjunction to go ahead and get rid of all the sprue material off of the miniatures. I then also have some tweezers. Now these aren't just like normal looking tweezers, these are some long-nosed tweezers, and they're at an angle so that you're able to get into those little fine areas instead of using your big, thick, clunky fingers. For these miniatures, I'm going to go ahead and use some of the Gorilla Super Glue Gel, and then I'm also going to use some toothpicks so that I can go ahead and spread it around in the fine areas instead of just glopping down a bunch of glue and then it ends up going all over the place. I then have some what I call helping hands. So I got over here a 12-powered magnifying glass, but on it, it also has some of these alligator clips. So it can go ahead and hold on to your miniature or your bases. Now don't apply it directly to the miniature or the base because you might damage it. You know, put maybe a piece of cloth in there or hook it up to some cardboard that'll hook up to your base. And other than the 12 power, I also have a 5-power magnifying glass, and that's actually off camera as I use that as my light source. So here it is here, and all I do is just flip up the lid and I can go ahead and look down into this big open port right here for a 5 times power. And then it also has a 4-setting dimmable light. So I can go ahead and turn it off, and then 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then also I have that wood base that I made for the painting that'll hold our miniatures, to where I took a piece of wood, I went ahead and pounded 3 nails in there and cut off their tops, and then I took the dowels here, just drilled a hole in them, and I can go ahead and just put them right on there and put the miniature up top and do some gluing. So here you can see that the whole area here is getting kind of congested with a bunch of stuff, and let's go ahead and do a blast from the past when I first started about 2.5 years ago, back in November of 2017. So here you can see the picture is all nice and clean, and there's hardly anything on there, hardly any kind of a toolbox. The newspaper looks all nice and crisp and clean. You can see the folds, they look like they're going to cut you. And now you come back to present day here, and what do we got? We got a bunch of stuff all around the outside edges of the workstation, but it's enough that this area inside here is good enough that I can go ahead and do my work. And then you can see that the newspaper here is getting kind of matted down. It's all wrinkled and ripped, and the nice crease line here ain't going to cut you. So There we go, there we go. Well, that should do it for now. I got plenty more miniatures to assemble, so plenty of tips coming your way. Now, as I said, today we're going to be assembling the alternate genders of the 4 heroes from the Shadows of Brimstone's core box, City of the Ancients. And here are the 4 alternate genders that we're going to be assembling. And all of them come with some kind of a small sprue that all of the parts are attached to, and then each one also contains a 30mm base. We have the female Bandida, and as you can see here, she comes in 2 pieces. We got the hat and the full body piece. Now on the hat, you can see right in the middle there that there's a peg, and if you go ahead and turn the full body piece around, there's an area on her back that's kind of flattened, and then there's a hole right there that the piece that the hat has for the peg, it's going to go right in there, and then her hat is going to be on her back. So her hat won't be on top of her head, it'll actually be on her back. The female Gunslinger, she comes in 4 pieces. And she's got the 2 hands, and each is holding a pistol. There's a hat and the full body piece. Now you can tell by looking at the top of her head, it looks like it's kind of chopped off. So that means that her hat is actually going to fit on top of her head. That on her back, there isn't anything that she's going to be putting her hat, flung back and held on there by a cord. So her hat is actually going to go on top. Now this miniature here is going to scare me because I got these 2 small hands with pistols that I've got to go ahead and glue at the end of her arms there. And the incident I had with the other miniature with the barrel of the gun breaking off and flying, I'm going to be really scared with these 2 pieces here. So we'll see what happens with that. The male piano player, so he comes in 1 piece. And it's a full body piece. So this one's going to be a really easy one. All we have to do is just chop off the sprue right underneath his boots, and then we'll go ahead and we'll drag them right on the sandpaper so that the area underneath the boots will flatten out, and then we'll just glue them right on the base. And the female U.S. Marshal, just like the male piano player, she comes in 1 piece also. So same way, we'll go and just chop off the sprue right underneath her boots, drag her right on the sandpaper, flatten it out, and glue her right onto the base. So with all that information about what's included and going to happen, let's get my basic set tools ready, and before we continue on, I'm going to go ahead and jump off camera and assemble the alternate genders. So, I'll be right back. Hello there, welcome back as we just finished up the assembling of our 4 alternate genders. The assembling process took me about 2.5 hours to complete, and everything seemed to fit good. So let's go ahead and talk about how long each alternate gender took to assemble and any problems assembling them. First up is the female Bandida, and she took about 45 minutes to assemble, and overall the assembly went pretty good. As you can see here, she's on a sprue with 2 pieces, got a hat with a pin, and a full body piece. On her back there's a flat area that's got a hole, and that's where the pin from the hat is going to attach. We got ourselves 2 issues though. One is the hat, and the other is at the bottom of her boots. So for her hat, there's this cylindrical piece that's coming off of the sprue, and it's attached to the top part of the hat there. So after we clip off the hat, we're going to have to go ahead and take the X-Acto knife, file, or maybe the sandpaper, and go ahead and get rid of that piece, because when we put the hat on the back here, we need it to be flush to her back. Otherwise that little piece of a sprue is going to make it stick out a little bit too much. On the bottom of her boots, it's got the sprue there that's coming up there, and there's a lot of extra material that's on there, and especially between the heel and the front of the boot, in that little area there, there's some of that sprue material. Now you might want to just go ahead and just snip off the sprue from the boot, and that's it. Just glue it right to the base. Or like what I did, I went ahead and just took an X-Acto knife and file and removed that material that's in that area. So for her hat, now the hat is flat, but as you can see here, with her back and then on to her head, it's actually curved. So if you put that flat hat right there, you're going to have this space right in there. So what I had to do was go ahead and just take the brim of the hat on the top and bottom and bend them a little bit so that it would form a curve that it would fit right against that curved area between her back and her head. Then after I got the boots off of the sprue, I went ahead and just drugged the miniature on some sandpaper to flatten it out a little bit. Well, the heel is actually a little bit higher than the boot, so it gives it kind of an angle like this. So when you place the Bandida, trying to get her perpendicular with her boot flat, it's actually going to lean her back some. So I went ahead and put some glue on the bottom of her boots, and then as the glue was drying, I went ahead and just pushed her forward so that she ended up being perpendicular to the base. And then I went ahead and got some more glue on a toothpick, and I just pushed it underneath the boot so that it would form like an extended heel down to the base. So now the Bandida won't fall back anymore. On the back it looks pretty good here. Now the brim of the hat is supposed to be circular, but as you can see it goes circular and at the bottom it cuts straight across. So when I removed the hat from the sprue, I went and chopped it there, which ended up being a flat spot there. But it looks okay here, but just remember that look at your pieces on your sprue and make sure that the piece is actually going in a curve instead of flat across. Make sure that one piece that you think looks like something that could be trash is actually a piece needed for the miniature. So be careful when you're removing pieces from the sprue. And there's the front of the Bandida, and she's looking pretty good there. Nice, standing nice and tall. She's not wobbling off to the side or anything, so it looks pretty good. Next up, we have the female Gunslinger. Female Gunslinger, she took her about an hour to assemble, and though I was a bit scared going in, everything went okay. So as you can see here, she's on the small sprue there in 4 pieces. Got the 2 hands, each of them holding a pistol, a hat, and then the full body piece. On the back here, you can see the top of her head is chopped off there, and you can see that the hat's got kind of like an opening there. Now there is no pin or anything to place the hat onto the top of the miniature, so you're going to have to be careful when you go to place that. It's kind of like a rotation as you put it on top there, and there's a little bit of a notch that it'll hook into, but overall it's a very much a shoot and miss of trying to get in the right area. So just be careful when you're putting the hat on, because you might get a little bit off-centered of some sort. Now we did have a couple issues here. We have the 2 hands that are holding the guns there. That was one, and then of course the other one is the sprue that's going to the bottom of her boots. As you can see here, just like the Bandida, they come right up in there and they fill in that space between the heel and the boot. So whether you want to just cut it off there and glue it, or go ahead and remove it like I do, it's all up to you. And then the other part is the 2 guns that we have here. We'll get a little closer shot. You can see here the one on the left, which is actually the right hand. You can see that from the hand, it could be actually a glove. It extends back a little bit, and it looks like a nice flat surface. Now the one on the right, which is actually the left hand, you can see coming off the hand, it looks like it's been kind of chewed on and something like that. So definitely examine your pieces for your miniature when you go ahead to do these assembling, because some of them might come out bad from the manufacturer. So I went ahead and cut her off the sprue and glued her right to the base. And you might be saying, hey, where's the hat and the hands at? Well, I decided to go ahead and have her secured on the base, and then I'll go ahead and attach them a little bit later. As you can see, I have her placed on the one of the dowels that I have, and then that's hooked up to that brown base so that I can have her just sitting there, and then I can go ahead and work on her. So the first thing I did, I went ahead and applied her hat. Now, if you look at the top of the hat, it actually comes to like a peak, so you know that that is the front. But like I said, when you go to put it on the top and you try turning it, it's not like there's this big notch that it clicks into. So you got to kind of go with the flow and try and manipulate it pretty good there. So as you can see here, the hat looks pretty good upon her head there. It's not up and down or anything like that, just facing forward. And when I did apply the boots to the base, she was at a slight angle back, so I had to do the same trick by pushing her forward a little bit and then applying some glue underneath. Now when I did take a closer look at the hat is actually a little bit back farther, because if you take the middle of the hat line and goes down, it doesn't go to the middle of her head, it goes just past her ear of some sort. So just going to have to watch out for the hat. It's kind of a hit and miss manipulation of trying to get that in the center. We're going to go ahead and put the right hand on now. And I don't know if you can see that black line. I'll go ahead and zoom in here. But just above the hand there's that black line. And I don't know if it's just that I put too much glue so that there was like this gap that formed by it, or if I didn't sand down the hand to the arm area too much so that they were both flat, but instead they had some kind of a arc to them. So definitely watch it. Do some dry fitting, put your pieces together without any glue to make sure that they fit okay. Then we went ahead and went off to the left hand and did the same thing there. You can't really see it, so we'll zoom in a little bit. And there is a slight black line there. So it looks like I probably sanded it good enough, but there's probably too much glue that was in between there, so it's just causing that kind of a little bit of a gap. But it does look pretty good there. Alright, from her back, she's looking pretty good. It looks like she's kind of a little bit lopsided there. I'll show you here in a second on the front that she's pretty much putting her weight on her right leg. So that's why it looks like she's kind of off and stuff like that. Now, one thing you might want to notice is that why are her guns shaped and facing the way that they are? So you'll notice that her right hand is holding that gun, and the top of the gun is actually pointing directly away from her. Okay, the gun in her left hand, that gun is actually pointing away from her left side. So, and that's actually the way that they have it in the picture of the way that she's holding these guns. So it's not like, one's off to the side like this, one's pointing forward. So, they should have both be forward, but nope, that's just the way it is. One is off to the side. Alright, well there we go. That is the female gunslinger. And next up is going to be our male piano player. Alright, male piano player. It took him about 20 minutes to assemble him, and he only had one piece, which was the full body piece, and it pretty much went pretty smooth. So I was pretty happy with this one, being a nice, easy one. As you can see here, he's on the sprue, and he's got one piece off from the back. No really issues to deal with. A lot of good details there. Now we had one little issue is the sprue was going to the bottom of his feet, so just like the other two miniatures. But in this case, he's not wearing cowboy boots, so we're not going to have that heel to the front of the boot issue, he's just got regular shoes on. So I just went ahead and did the snipping of the sprue with the flush cutters, just chopped them right off and just did a little bit of a sanding. And as you can see here, he's nice and perpendicular to the base, and that's pretty much what he ended up being at, because he didn't have any kind of angle front or back. He just went perpendicular down. It was a nice glue job, and everything came out pretty nice there. And from behind you can see that he's standing straight up, and he's got all of his weight, distributed straight down, so that he's not looking all cockeyed or anything like that. And off the front, same way. He's looking pretty good. So that is the male piano player. And finally we have our female U.S. Marshal. And she took about 25 minutes to assemble, and just like the piano player, pretty smooth. As you can see here, she's on a small sprue there, and there's only one piece to her. Off the back, everything's looking good. She's looking a little bit kind of lopsided there a little bit, but I'll show you here in a second why. She does have the issue with the sprue coming up to the bottom of the boots, and that material going between the heel and the front part of the boot. So I went ahead and just glued her and placed her on there, and she had barely, if anything, of a back angle there. So I just pushed her just a little bit there and added a little bit glue. So it really wasn't that big of a deal for that one, but everything came out okay there. And as you can see that she, like I said, it looked like she was lopsided, but actually by looking at her, she's putting all of her weight on her left leg. So that's why, and so her right leg is just sticking out, and it's lightly placed there. Now there she goes. She's looking all good, ready to do some U.S. Marshal stuff. And there we go, the female U.S. Marshal. Well, there you have it. This is going to complete the assembling of the 4 alternate genders of the heroes from the first Shadows of Brimstone's core box, City of the Ancients. The female Bandida, the female Gunslinger, the male piano player, and the female U.S. Marshal. Now that our alternate genders are all assembled and ready to go, let's go ahead and get our 4 heroes back down to the gaming table for some more action.